Hey y'all, welcome to Criminalist Behavior Podcast, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of Louisiana's history and current most chilling true crime stories. I'll be guiding you through the darkness of these crimes and all of those involved. Each week, we dig deep on those forgotten crimes or those crimes currently happening with the underlying legends that continue to haunt us. So lean in, listen, and get ready because true crime is anything but ordinary. Stay with me as we unravel what happened in these mysteries. So today we're on the slaying of the Cox technician. This is season 2, episode number 6. If this is your first time listening, hi, my name is Sarah S2E6, and I'm your host for Criminalist Behavior Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to this show, and I hope you enjoy it. So right off the bat, trigger warning, this episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. So, in case you are unaware, the slaying of the Cox technician, this happened last year, actually, December 16th to be exact. And it happened in New Orleans. But before I get started on the case itself, I want to give you a little insight. I am the only person operating this whole podcast, researching, recording, editing, uploading, dealing with the social media, and so y'all bear with because life be lifing and I be tired. So I am trying to stay on track, but I do need to get episodes ahead of time so y'all don't have to wait an extra day or whatever because life be lifing. So in that event, I hopefully can plan at least to have some more this weekend, but do plan on going to a funeral, and well, I think I have to work overtime. But just letting y'all know, y'all bear with me. And I did have a person reach out to me in reference to the Stephanie case. That happened about 8 episodes ago, but apparently there's no podcast talking about that case. And Stephanie Abear was a girl that ended up missing at the age of 5, and apparently the person who reached out to me is where Stephanie was trying to go play with. And I mean, there's a lot of things that some of these news articles have that are not actual factual evidence. So I may be doing another case on Stephanie. I'm wondering if they're actually going to want to do an interview. I'm waiting to hear back on that. So y'all bear with. So we may be just redoing the Stephanie case, and we'll have some insight with actual people who were actually involved in there and not just from what's all over on the court docs or just social media or anything like that. Because as we all know, at least with small towns, that is, the rumor mill spreads, and obviously the media spreads all kind of falsification involving every different thing. So things that we may be told or we may be reading may not actually be the factual evidence in the case. And there's a lot of things that are usually left out because media just wants you to know certain things. Whatever's going to sell a good story, whether it's true or it's not, and that's just not always right. So it's best to have some insight on someone who was actually involved in anything. And I always want to make sure that the story is correct and factual because these stories need to be told and people need to get justice. So with this case, Adam, AJ Joseph Brown, he was a vibrant individual and he was taken too soon. He was at the age of 35 when he passed away. He was born on July 26, 1989 in New Orleans. And like I said, this incident occurred on December 16th of 2024. Now, AJ was the son of Adam Parker Brown and Shayna Fortenberry Est. And for the past 7 years, AJ was actually serving as a Cox Communication Network technician. Prior to his role at Cox, he worked in hospitality industry as a server, at Zia's and Austin Steakhouse, which was in Metairie, Louisiana. And he had a friendly nature about him with a radiant smile, and he just adored all his customers. And regardless of the challenges he faced, AJ consistently placed the needs of others above his own. He offered a compassionate ear, a supportive hand, or a soothing word in any situation. He had a passion for dining and was an avid culinary enthusiast. Additionally, AJ actually possessed a deep appreciation for music as well, as he was a skilled singer and guitarist. He was often surrounded by a large circle of his close-knit friends who he thought of just as family. Now, I know we could all relate to that because, there's some of us who's been friends with the same person since high school, or there's actually some of us have been friends with people who they actually grew up with, like, since babies. Because I know I have a couple of friends like that. So, AJ leaves behind a profound legacy of love. And he had a stepfather named Todd and a brother named Justin. He's also, he had many aunts and uncles: Marla Bowles, Marshall Carliner, Dawn Cochran, Ellis Fortenberry, Calvin Brown, Kevin, and obviously several cousins. So his funeral was conducted on Monday, December 30th, 2024, and this was at the Garden of Memories Funeral Home that was located at 4900 Airline Drive in Metairie, Louisiana. And the burial occurred immediately after the funeral at West Lawn Memorial Park, which was at 1225 Whitney Avenue in Terrytown, Louisiana. And the family actually requested everyone that attended his funeral wear the color purple in honor of the occasion, and that's because purple was AJ's favorite color. So, AJ tragically lost his life on Monday, December 16, 2024, after he was shot while performing his duties as a cop technician in New Orleans East. So, New Orleans Police Department confirmed the identity of the deceased Cox employee and identified a suspect in the shooting that took place. And the victim was named and identified as 35-year-old Adam A.J. Brown. So what happened was, at approximately 12:19 p.m. on December 16, 2024, officers from the NOPD 7th District responded to reports of an unresponsive individual lying beside a work truck. And as the officers arrived on scene, they discovered a victim with multiple gunshot wounds. And they immediately dispatched the ambulance and had emergency medical services transport him to University Medical Center. So the police reported that the shooting occurred actually around about lunch, so about 12:30 p.m. exactly, while AJ was installing a cable in the 8,000 block of Dwyer Road. So AJ sustained multiple gunshot wounds and subsequently succumbed to his injuries later on at the University Medical Center that evening. So the tragic event seems to have stemmed from a botched robbery attempt. This situation paints a somber picture of violence that was intertwined with elements of desperation and perhaps a degree of recklessness. Adam engaged in a routine task that was essential to modern infrastructure. He found himself caught in a moment of fate when the robbery started to unfold. Now, analyzing the details, the multiple gunshot wounds indicate that the suspect may not have been a seasoned criminal, but rather someone who acted out of panic or just plain incompetence. This notion is further supported by the understanding that in instances where a robbery leads to a fatality, that the suspect often fails to consider the long-term consequences of their actions. So the timeline is of considerable importance. The shooting took place shortly after AJ commenced his work at approximately 12:30 p.m. while the police were alerted just prior at 12:19 p.m. So this detail offers a vital perspective, meaning if the victim was indeed shot at 12:30, it situates the crime within the context of regular business hours. So given the public nature of the work site, it is plausible that there were witnesses present. Now, whether or not they were going to come forward or actually say anything is another problem that everyone has to deal with. So additionally, the presence of a work truck in proximity should not be disregarded. Could it have been a target for the theft? Contractor trucks frequently house valuable tools and equipment. So, like, especially those who like to, what do you call that? They like to scrap. So, like copper wire and all of that stuff. I mean, I'm sure that's something that this person may have taken into consideration when they thought about robbing AJ. Also, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the whole cable thing, but they don't always have money on them, so it had to just be tools or something, or just, I mean, New Orleans East is a pretty bad area, but who knows what this person was thinking. So it is reasonable to hypothesize that the suspect may have deceived the victim into feeling secure, possibly by pretending to seek assistance or advice. So he probably approached AJ by asking him a question, and then just started blasting him because he was trying to rob him. So this could have triggered the subsequent violent confrontation. So the police classification of the incident as an attempted robbery gone wrong implies they have reason to view it as a premeditated act. So they say that the act itself was actually poorly executed. So local crime trends, the potential for eyewitness accounts, and forensic evidence gathered from the scene include ballistic examinations, will be essential in identifying and capturing the suspect. So it's rare to see that someone's going to shoot someone in broad daylight, but this happened around lunchtime, and in New Orleans East, they don't give a damn what time it is. If they want something, they're going to go out and get it regardless. Because why? They think people fear them. And some people do, but fuck around and find out and mess with the wrong one, I promise you, you're going to get what's coming to you. But nonetheless, I am interested to learn if there are any developments regarding any potential suspects or if anyone resembling the shooter was actually observed fleeing the scene. Or was it just by word of mouth or something that they just thought? Was there cameras involved? I mean, these are questions that everyone is just trying to figure out. So it would be prudent to examine the recent activities of AJ prior to this encounter, as it is essential to consider the possibility of any previous altercations or threats that may have contributed to this tragic incident. So, while the circumstances are undoubtedly distressing, they also offer numerous avenues for investigation. Each detail may serve as a crucial element in unraveling the enigma surrounding the unfortunate occurrence. Like, what compelling leads might we pursue in our quest for the truth of what actually went down with AJ? So NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick, now she's been in several of my cases I talk about, and I think she's doing her damn thing. But Ann Kirkpatrick indicated that the department's violent offender warrant squad was pursuing the suspect and aware of the suspect's identity. The police initiated their investigation as a homicide case without any type of delay. I mean, hello, duh. Anyways, Cox Cable expressed their sorrow regarding the incidents involving one of their employees, stating the following statements. We're deeply saddened by this news, and we're working closely with the investigators, and this was sent in an email. So the responsibility now lies with the Orleans Parish Coroner's Office to identify who this victim was following the notification of letting their family know, or, making sure that the family could possibly do a positive identification, because, yeah, they have probably his work badge from Cox Communication, and maybe an ID or something in his wallet. But I mean, it's always right to have a family member identify this person because you never know. So Shayna Est, which is Adam's mother, conveyed her profound sorrow through a GoFundMe. And she did this GoFundMe campaign portraying her son as an exceptional individual that was cherished by all who knew him. He never met a stranger. And she noted that Adam, affectionately referred to as AJ, was not only one of the finest technicians at Cox Communications, but also a remarkably kind and compassionate person. And in a heartfelt tribute, Walker, which was a close friend of Adam, he made the following statements. He was the best Cox technician they had. And the friends and family were mourning the loss of AJ, who had no adversaries and was celebrated for his warm smile and contagious kindness. Christina Rester, who initiated the fundraiser, expressed the following statement. He was such an amazing person. We are devastated by his loss. And this guy was well loved. So many sad folks in my feed. So social media has just been flooded with the different tributes with like everyone commenting on how great of a person AJ was. The family is currently facing the immense grief of Adam's sudden and tragic passing. And there's a hashtag that says Justice the number 4 Adam Brown. And it has gained significant traction as loved ones advocate for justice regarding his untimely death. So following the investigation, detectives from NOPD homicide section concluded that the homicide transpired during an attempted armed robbery. And they identified the suspect as Jaleel Williams as the suspected offender. So an arrest warrant was issued for Jaleel Williams, and they charged him with 1 count of second-degree murder. Court records indicate that the individual that was accused of fatally shooting a Cox employee during the attempted armed robbery had previously attempted to rob another man at gunpoint just days prior. So, who is Jaleel? Jaleel Williams was born on July 14th, 1996. And he was taken into custody at Arlene's Justice Center on that following Thursday morning, facing charges that included the attempted armed robbery with a firearm, possession of a firearm by a felon, and second-degree murder. So Jaleel was implicated in the fatal shooting of 35-year-old Adam A.J. Brown, who was working at that 8,000 block of Dwyer Road when Jaleel attempted to rob him at gunpoint. So, again, we're going to go over what happened. So, at approximately 12:30 p.m., this is when police discovered AJ next to his work truck on the ground with several bullet wounds to his body. A witness actually reported that a man on a scooter had fled the scene. Now, let's stop and think about this. A scooter. Now, whether it's not it's an electric scooter, whether it's not it's one of those push things you stand on a little bar, or this is just like a little freaking moped, either way, you're sitting here robbing a guy at gunpoint, and you're on a fucking scooter. That's comical. That's comical. So, basically, what happened was this witness seen this man fleeing the scene on a scooter, and the New Orleans Police Department and the Criminal District Court followed up on this lead. So that's whenever, on December 14th, 2024, that Saturday, law enforcement initiated an investigation into this attempted armed robbery and second-degree murder, possibly first-degree, depending, because they're thinking it was premeditated, right? So this actually happened at the intersection of Burgundy and Ursulines Avenue at 7:15 p.m. So there was a victim that reported to the police that he was en route to the grocery store when a man, later identified as Jaleel Williams, banished a firearm and commanded him to drop everything, as documented in court records. So this is the incident that happened days right before AJ's shooting. So this is when Jaleel went up to this person and banished a weapon, a gun pointed at him, and told him to drop everything. And it is noted that Jaleel had previously been convicted of armed robbery in 2014, which legally barred him from ever possessing a firearm again because he was known as a convicted felon. So the victim in this incident, which was, like I said, a week prior, recounted that he refused the demand and instead he sought to take cover between two parked vehicles to evade Jaleel Williams. Surveillance footage from a nearby residence actually captured this whole incident, and it depicted Jaleel dressed in torn jeans and a distinctive hoodie adorned with yellow designs, according to the court records. So the detective that was assigned to the investigation of the robbery-informed homicide was Detective Matthew Rifle. And he said that the suspect actually bore a resemblance to an individual that was seen in that surveillance footage from a prior incident that was noted. So they utilized the video evidence, and investigators were able to trace Jaleel Williams to the vicinity of Bourbon and Canal Streets later that afternoon, leading detectives to identify him as the person that was responsible for both incidents. The footage also facilitated that the identification of the scooter's make. So this actually prompted Matthew Rifle to contact a dealership on St. Claude Avenue that following day, where he discovered Jaleel Williams had actually purchased the Wolf scooter that was depicted in the video. So notably, Williams was observed wearing the same hoodie that authorities allege he was wearing at both of the crime scenes during the purchase of the vehicle. So, this dude's sitting there robbing people at gunpoint. He bought this damn scooter and he's wearing the same damn clothes. Okay. Now, I'm not a smart man, but motherfucker, don't you think you want to change it up, son? So, on Thursday, Magistrate Judge Juana Lombard established a bond of $2.45 million for Jaleel Williams. And prior to his employment at Cox a few years ago, AJ had been employed as a cook. And as noted by his friend Shane Maddox, Maddox said working for the cable company was a long-held aspiration that AJ wanted to do. And Maddox made the following statement. It is truly devastating and heartbreaking that he finally achieved his dream job only for it to conclude in such a tragic manner. And he recounted that he met AJ nearly 10 years ago at a bar in Metairie during a karaoke session. And this is where he recognized AJ's innate talent for singing. Although they had not seen each other for a couple of years, they coincidentally reunited a few weeks prior to this incident at a karaoke venue on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. So their interaction was brief, but Maddox expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to reconnect with his friend. So now his friend Maddox is left grappling with the incomprehensible nature of the situation. How did it come to this? How did it happen? And the fact that Adam was taken from us so abruptly was just unfathomable. So Jaleel Williams was charged with shooting AJ in the 8,000 block of Dwyer Road during a failed armed robbery attempt. Police arrived on the scene at 12:19 p.m. and discovered Brown next to his work truck and transported where he succumbed to his injuries around 4:30 the same evening. So, a spokesperson for Cox indicated that there were no updates on the case at the time that they were interviewed, while NOPD confirmed that only one suspect was involved. A resident of New Orleans East who recognized who requested, I'm gonna get it out. So a resident of New Orleans East who requested the anonymity, I can't say that word, what the hell? Basically, they want to be anonymous due to the concerns about retaliation, recounted witnessing crowds gathered around AJ upon exiting her home. She noted that detectives were present at the scene until about 5 or 6 p.m. and this resident described the neighborhood as typically being quiet And she remarked that incidents of gun violence are just out of the norm in that area. It is something traumatic, and she stated that she felt sympathy for AJ and his entire family. So, New Orleans police have announced the identification of Jalil in the shooting death of AJ, and they were seeking to arrest that 28-year-old Jalil Williams. So, they arrested Jalil and charged him with second-degree murder. And emergency responders actually discovered him at his work truck on the ground. And the Violent Offenders Warrant Squad of the New Orleans Police Department, in collaboration with the U.S. Marshal Service, apprehended Jalil Williams, who was linked in a homicide investigation that took place. So, he was arrested without incident, and authorities responded by booking him at the Orleans Parish Jail. And following a thorough investigation, homicide detectives established a connection between the murder and an attempted armed robbery, resulting Jalil Williams being identified as the primary suspect in both incidents. So, they arrested him at 5:45 a.m. at 1000 block of Loyola Avenue. And at that time, he was taken to Orleans Parish Justice System, and that was located at 2800 Gravier Street in New Orleans. So Jalil was in the process of being processed at the Orleans Parish Justice Center, as detailed in the report. And as the procedures following the arrest continued, the NOPD wanted to encourage anyone with any additional information to come forward. Individuals were asked to contact the homicide section of the New Orleans Police Department at the number 504-658-5300. And in line with the tenets of the American justice system, Jalil is considered innocent until proven guilty into the court of law. So Jalil actually has an extensive criminal history, and this was mostly when he was an adolescent. So court documents indicate that he was apprehended in December of 2012 at the age of 16, and this was based on allegations of another armed robbery. So while awaiting trial, he incurred additional charges, being in custody when he committed a battery against a police officer, which resulted in injury. And he also had a battery against a correctional officer. He resisted arrest with force, illegal possession of a weapon, and 2 counts of introducing contraband into a correctional facility. So, Jalil entered a guilty plea to all charges on November 21st of 2014 for that. So, the criminal district court judge, Benedict Willard, sentenced him to the minimum of 10 years for the armed robbery, granting credit for the time that was already served. So, his 1-year sentence for the other offenses was served concurrently with the armed robbery sentence. So, minimum sentence of 10 years, and concurrently meaning at the same time. So, at 17, Jalil Williams was prosecuted as an adult for that armed robbery charge, and he was actually facing further allegations after he engaged in a physical altercation with the 2 sheriff's deputies at Orleans Parish Prison. And according to the arrest report, the incident occurred when Jalil refused to comply with the orders to return to his cell. And he was accused of striking one of the deputies in the face, which dislocated his shoulder, and injuring a female deputy's head and left hand while she attempted to intervene. So, a representative for Orleans Parish Sheriff, Moreland Guzman, did not provide any information regarding the location of the altercation, but the status of the deputies and inmate involved, or further specifics about that particular incident. That violent occurrence was the most recent in a series of troubling events at the jail at the time, and that jail was currently operating under a federal consent decree aimed at enhancing staffing levels, so they were understaffed. And they also had to improve the conditions of the jail as well. So within a week, from March 23rd to March 30th, one inmate actually lost his life. And this was following a confrontation with another person. At least 2 additional inmates were hospitalized, and then these 2 deputies were sustained injuries in separate incidents within the same facility. So they had some problems happening at this jail. Inmate died. Jalil hitting both of these officers. So, yeah. So Jalil was facing trial as an adult for that armed robbery charge, and then he was charged with that second-degree battery against a correctional officer, and 2 counts of resisting arrest with force. And according to the arrest report, Jalil disregarded multiple directives from Sheriff Deputy Sergeant Sidney Dorsey to return to his cell. As Dorsey attempted to guide Williams back, the report indicated that the teenager resisted and struck him in the face, resulting in a significant laceration to the deputy's lip. Furthermore, the report also stated that Jalil pushed Dorsey to the ground, leading to him dislocating Dorsey's right shoulder. Deputy Chandrika Mikado also sustained injuries during the incident, as noted in the report, which mentioned unspecified injuries to the back of her head and left hand. The report indicated that Jalil acknowledged having his rights read to him by an NOPD detective and confessed to hitting the sergeant before being booked on those additional charges. Jalil, who was described as standing 5 foot 8 inches tall and weighing 147 pounds, did not sustain any injuries and did not require medical treatment, according to the report. Jalil was 16 years old at the time of his arrest in December 2012, so this is another incident, just in case you're not following. And he was actually facing accusations of, you guess it, armed robbery. 16 years old, okay? He was involved in a theft of a man's car keys, wallet, and cell phone. Court documents revealed that the juvenile court judge, Tammy Stewart, transferred Jalil's case to the Criminal District Court in 2013 of January. And this permitted the habitual juvenile offender to be prosecuted as an adult for the first time in Orleans Parish. So even at the age of 16, he was being prosecuted as an adult because of his extensive freaking history. Like, you think you would fucking learn, right? But no, let's just keep pressing a luck, because while you don't want to work for an honest living, you just want to steal what people work for. I mean, that's just disgusting. Say, a former pupil of Sarah Towles Reed, who was known to go to the same high school as Jalil, she said that Jalil's received a transfer from the Orleans Justice Center, also known as the OPP, to New Orleans Youth Studies Center in March of 2013. He was returned to OPP custody in less than 2 months, and that appearance for court was set on that May 2nd of 2013. So court documents indicated that the prosecutors from Orleans Parish opposed Jalil Williams' temporary move to the Youth Studies Center, contending that his increasingly active and violent criminal record rendered him as an unsuitable candidate for juvenile rehabilitation. So records revealed that he was actually starting his criminal history from 2006. So take heed. 2006. He was 10 years old, y'all. 10. And this is when he was arrested at the age of 10 for possession of stolen property and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. So, what happened there? On March 12, 2007, a man named James William was facing 3 counts of unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Oh my God, I can't stop yawning, y'all. Oh man, I still need more coffee in my life, but I'm recording this pretty late. If I drink coffee, I'm not going to sleep, so bear with. So, James was in a vehicle with Jalil, or shall I say Jalil was in a vehicle with James, because James was the adult at this time, and they basically stole a vehicle, and this was a violation of Louisiana's RS 1468-4 code. He entered a not guilty plea on April 2nd, 2007. And this is James Williams, by the way, the other individual in the car. So following a preliminary hearing on May 25th, 2007, this is when the district court determined there was a probable cause to proceed with a trial and subsequently raised James's bond to $15,000. So the state later prosecuted the first account. So basically, James pled guilty to the second and third counts under the precedent set by the North Carolina versus Alford case. And he received a sentence of 3 years at hard labor with credit for time served to be served concurrently. And he was actually recommended to take part in the impact program. The state then filed a multiple bill of information against him. And on July 3rd, 2007, this is when the district court decided to modify James Williams' guilty plea from an Alford plea to one in accordance with the state versus Crosby. And this appeal pertained to the third count of the bill of information. So the facts that were presented were derived from testimony that was given during the preliminary hearing. And Officer Glenell Centino testified that on December 26, 2006, while assigned to Leontine Streets as he was concluding a call, he noted that the driver of this vehicle appeared to be quite young. And the driver was actually Jaleel Williams. Like I said, 10 years old driving this car. So, this is when Officer Centino recalled having received a report of a stolen red Jaguar while he was on desk duty on December 23rd, 2006, which was 3 days prior. So, this is whenever Officer Centino requested additional units and subsequently stopped the Jaguar at the intersection of Exposition Boulevard and Magazine Street. And this is when Jaleel was identified as the driver of the vehicle, and a check of the vehicle identification number confirmed that this particular Jaguar had been the one that was reported stolen. And they actually replaced the license plate on this Jaguar with a temporary one. So the vehicle's owner was notified and they were able to retrieve the Jaguar back, while both Jaleel and James were arrested for possession of the stolen vehicle. So, during cross-examination, Officer Centino stated that a temporary license plate cannot be processed through the NCIC. And this is why they think James and Jaleel put a temporary plate on there, because they knew that the officer would not be able to process that plate through the NCIC. And in case you don't know what NCIC is, it's basically where they look up your license plate, your license information, and see if everything's valid. There is no stolen hits or anything on there. And basically, you're driving legal, right? He also indicated that James did not provide any statements at that time. Subsequent arrests occurred, including 3 in 2008, 2 for theft and 1 for possession of stolen property, 1 in 2009 for simple criminal damage, and 1 in 2010 for possession of stolen property, 2 in 2011 for theft and simple burglary. So this is Jaleel's rap sheet. I mean, a lot of stolen shit because, of course, this man didn't have a freaking honest job a day in his damn life. He just wants to steal from those working hard. So Jaleel Williams' 2017 arrest, this is whenever there was an appeal issued by the Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas, which dismissed his initial petition filed under the Post-Conviction Relief Act. So they vacated that order and remanded the case for further proceedings. So what happened was, on July 18, 2013, Jaleel Williams made an appeal, and the trial court provided an accurate account of the pertinent facts and procedural history of the matter. Jaleel was apprehended on September 18, 2002, after law enforcement observed him selling 2 packs of crack cocaine to an individual who was subsequently detained. Additionally, this is when Jaleel was actually found in possession of 2 other packs of crack cocaine, and $89 in U.S. currency. And on October 24, 2003, following a bench trial, Jaleel Williams was actually convicted of possession of a controlled substance with the intent to deliver, as well as simple possession, and was sentenced to the term to 9 to 19 months incarcerated, following by 2 years of reporting probation. So, on May 18, 2007, Jalil had a probation violation, also known as a VOP, and a hearing took place. So this actually revocated his probation and parole, and he was subsequently sentenced to 6 to 23 months being incarcerated, followed by 3 years of probation afterwards. And Jalil was actually granted parole for that particular one on September 3rd, 2007. So on the VOP hearing, which is, the violation of probation hearing, this is when a legal proceeding where the person who is on probation is accused of breaking the terms of their probation. And the hearing is held in front of a judge and is similar to what we have as a criminal trial. So, what actually happens at the VOP hearing, the violation of probation hearing? The prosecution and defense present evidence and arguments stating how the defendant would break his parole. And they must prove that the probation violation occurred by the preponderance of evidence. And the defendant may actually be ordered to court for that hearing. So the consequences of the violation of probation hearing is the defendant may face punitive consequences and ask to be served time in jail. So on July 15, 2008, this is when Jaleel Williams was apprehended on charges of aggravated assault and associated offenses. Subsequently, on September 2nd, 2008, he was arrested again. So again, this was 2-3 weeks later. He was arrested again for simple assault, burglary, violations of the Uniform Firearms Act, also known as a VOFA, and related charges. In both of these cases, they were actually dismissed on March 3rd, 2009, and he was listed on wanted notices for failing to appear. So, what the hell is VUFA, VOFA? So, this is a violation of the Uniform Firearms Act. And this is a crime involving the use, possession, sale, manufacturing, or transfer of firearms. And charges can be as summary offenses, misdemeanors, or felonies. So, examples of the VOFA violations could be carrying a firearm without having a license, which would be a third-degree felony, and carrying a firearm without a license after a previous conviction, which is a second-degree felony. Possessing a firearm with an altered manufacturer's number. So basically, if they try to get rid of the serial number on the gun, this is actually considered a felony as well, obviously, because you're defacing the gun. They're concealing the weapon without having a concealed permit, which also, in case you're unaware, Louisiana is open carry state. So you can conceal the weapon, but you do have to notify police officers that there is a weapon in the area where it's at. And this is something that you have to do. But carrying a concealed weapon without a permit at this time was not legal. And this actually made it become a felony that can make it illegal to possess firearms in the future. Also, another VOFA violation could be when someone discharges a firearm in a restricted area. So I know in the city you're not able to discharge firearms, especially like where I live in Louisiana. You're not able to discharge a firearm in the city. And this could be applied to schools, homes, roads, and other places. So penalties if you have a violation of the violation of the Uniform Firearms Act, the penalties depend on the severity of the violation. So basically, if you're just carrying a gun without a permit, your punishment is going to be less severe than if you're shooting the freaking gun in a restricted area, such as a school or the city or something like that. Possible penalties also obviously include several years in prison, a large fine, or a felony or a misdemeanor. It just depends on what you're actually doing. Some people with previous offenses could actually face stricter penalties. So the difference between an aggravated assault and a simple assault, because, Jalil was charged with both, aggravated assault is more serious of a crime than a simple assault. And this is because it involves the use of force or violence to cause serious bodily harm. So if you recall, on July 27, 2010, this is when Jalil entered a non-negotiated guilty plea for the possession of cocaine with the intent to distribute stemming from an arrest that happened on July 25, 2009. He was sentenced to a period of house arrest ranging from 8 to 23 months, along with his concurrent 72-month reporting probation. His probation was subsequently revoked, and this resulted in an additional concurrent 6-year probation term for that particular violation. On August 12, 2010, like damn near 2 weeks later, he was actually placed on wanted notices, and during a violation of probation hearing, his probation was revoked and he was sentenced to 6 years of probation, and this was to run consecutively to the sentence. This included a term of incarceration to 8 to 23 months following that 72-month of reporting probation. So this consisted of 6 years of reporting and 1 year of non-reporting probation after he was released. And on March 25th, Jalil was released from custody after he was granted parole. And this idiot, as he's on parole, he tested positive for marijuana, opiates, cocaine, and benzodiazepine. And this was happening because as he was seeing his probation officer, he had to take drug tests, and they screened his urine, and they were able to find this. So this is also a violation of parole because you can't have that. So he failed to report for a scheduled drug screening, and his compliance with reporting requirements was inconsistent. So he was arrested again on May 1st, 2012, facing charges related to the violation of Uniform Firearm Act and other offenses. So following that violation of parole hearing that happened on February 5th, 2013, this was when his probation was revoked. And sentencing was postponed pending the preparation of the pre-sentence report. And on August 17, 2013, this is when the court sentenced Jalil to the term of being incarcerated from 108 to 216 months. And this was to be served with an additional year of consecutive reporting probation for his crime. And the court actually upheld a judgment of sentence for Jalil on August 14, 2014. And they referred to the Commonwealth versus Williams, and Jalil did not pursue any further direct review. So, he filed his first PCRA petition pro se within the designated time frame, and this was on November 19th, 2014. So, he engaged in having a PCRA counsel who submitted an amended PCR petition on March 13, 2015. So, the Commonwealth responded with a motion to dismiss this on July 14, 2015. So, Jalil Williams submitted a second amended PCRA petition on October 2nd, 2015. And this was where the court notified the parties of his intention to dismiss the petition without a hearing. And this was in accordance to the PAR crime P907 code. So, if you're like me and you never heard of what the hell is a PCRA petition. So a PCRA petition is a request for relief from a criminal conviction under the Post-Conviction Relief Act. And some states may call it a PCR petition. So when you file a PCRA petition, you could file it immediately after being convicted and sentenced, or you can file it after regular appeals process doesn't provide any relief that they actually were seeking. Also, a suspect or defendant in this matter may file a PCRA petition if they were found guilty in a court that did not have jurisdiction over their case. So they can request collateral relief for people that was convicted of crimes that they didn't commit or serving illegal sentences, and they actually can get relief from a conviction that was based on jurisdictional issues. So Jalil submitted a pro se motion, requested the appointment of counsel in 2016, and he claimed that he reached out to his PCRA counsel on January 20th of 2016, following the receipt of the court's Rule 907 notice. So this is when the court hears petitions that was filed under the Post-Conviction Relief Act, and it's a state law that allows people convicted of a crime to challenge their conviction or sentence. And a pro se motion is a formal request for a court order or judgment made by someone who is representing themselves in court without an attorney. So what can a pro se motion be used for? I'm glad you asked. You can request a continuance, modify a previous court order, temporary child custody, clarification of an order, dismissal of an opposing party's case. You can request a rehearing, or you can seek to leave to proceed in forma pauperis. So, in order to file a pro se motion, what are those type of requirements? The motion must be in writing unless it was made orally during a hearing or trial. It must state the grounds for seeking the order, and it must state the relief that is sought in this order. So what Jalil Williams reported on his PCRA, he informed them of his decision to cease representation due to his inability to pay. So they did read him his rights, and in those rights, in case you're not familiar with the Miranda, which I don't know who would not be, but let's just say you are. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to have an attorney. If you cannot afford one may be appointed to you. Do you understand your rights as I read them? So he actually made the decision to not accept the public defender's help. So I'm not sure why, but he observed that the PCRA counsel did not submit a formal motion to withdraw from his case. And Jalil claimed that he had been abandoned by his PCRA counsel and lacked the financial means to secure any alternative legal representation. So he wanted to represent himself. He asserted that the PCRA counsel was ineffective for not addressing the issues that he wished to pursue. So he wanted to appoint new PCR counsel, and that following day he submitted that pro se response. So on February 19, 2016, this is when the PCRA court dismissed Jalil's petition at docket CP51CR 0009983-2009, which is just a case number, in case you were wondering. And this was without addressing his pro se motion for the appointment of counsel. Consequently, the court dismissed his other petition at another docket number, and Jalil actually filed a pro se notice of appeal for both dockets, along with a voluntary concise statement of errors that was per PA Rap 1925. And in Rule 1925B, he contended that the PCRA court had erred in dismissing his initial PCRA petition without appointing him a new counsel. And then, given this indigent status and the abandonment of his privately retained PCRA counsel, on the same day, he also filed a pro se motion requesting the appointment of counsel. The court subsequently appointed the PCRA an appellate counsel on March 16, 2016. And on April 26, like a month later, the court directed Jalil to file a Rule 1925 statement, which he submitted to counsel on May 6, 2016. So, Jalil raised 6 issues during this whole pro se motion, right? The first issue he raised was the sentence imposed in the case of 9 to 18 years at the violation of parole hearing was illegal and unconstitutional because it violated his right to not be placed in double jeopardy for the same offense. So double jeopardy means you cannot be charged for the same crime twice. So this is his pro se motion, number one. Number two, was the appellate defense counsel on direct appeal form from the violation of probation sentencing ineffective for not informing the appellate court that he wanted to be acquitted at trial of the Volfa offense, which was subject to the VOP hearing where the presiding judge found that Jalil had possessed the firearm. And issue number three, Jalil said that he's entitled to a new sentencing hearing because the trial court did not order him to receive credit for time served on his sentence from the date of his arrest to the date of sentencing, and did not order credit for time served of the 46 months credit for previous incarcerations that he received prior to his prior probation violations. So, number four, the trial court erred in not ordering a new violation of probation sentence hearing because Jalil was acquitted of the Volfa offense at the subsequent trial and stated that he was innocent of the Volfa violation, of which he was found to have been committed by the trial court at the Kate's voice of probation hearing. So basically, he was trying to say his counsel was ineffective. And at the voice of probation hearing, the counsel failed to object to improper prejudicial hearsay evidence, the omission of which also denied Jalil his state and federal right to confront the evidence that was coming against him. So, as an initial consideration, this is when Criminal Procedure 904 stipulates an irrelevant part. So, what is Criminal Procedure 904? Entry of appearance and appointment of counsel. So basically, except as outlined in paragraph H, when a defendant without representation demonstrates to the judge an inability to afford or attain counsel on their own behalf, the judge is actually required to appoint counsel to represent the defendant upon the submission of the defendant's first petition for post-conviction collateral relief. So when the counsel is appointed, the appointment of counsel shall remain effective throughout the entirety of the post-conviction collateral proceedings, and this must include any appeals arising from the resolution of the petition of post-conviction collateral relief. So, although the right to legal counsel in the context of PCRA is not derived from constitutional provisions, its significance should not be underestimated simply because it is based on procedural rules. So in the post-conviction context, defendants typically seek to address the errors and omissions of trial counsel. So what happened was, in the absence of legal representation, critical rights and defenses may be irrevocably forfeited. So on November 19, 2014, Jalil filed his first PCRA petition. And this was done in a timely manner, and he emerged PCRA counsel who submitted an amended PCRA petition on March of the following year. So the court issued a Rule 907 notice on January 15, 2016, and 10 days later, Jalil submitted that pro se motion requesting the appointment of counsel. He asserted that he had contacted PCRA counsel on January 20th, 2016, after he received that Rule 907 notice. And this was whenever the counsel would no longer represent him due to Jalil's inability to pay. So Jalil pointed out that the PCRA counsel had not filed a formal motion to withdraw with the court and claimed that the PCRA counsel had abandoned him and he lacked the means to hire another attorney. Jalil alleged that PCRA counsel was ineffective for failing to raise the issues he wished to pursue, and he requested the court to appoint a new PCRA counsel. And despite Jalil Williams' claims and all of this whole pro se motion bullshit, and he wanted a whole nother counsel and all this other shit, and he didn't have the means to pay for a private lawyer. He had claims of financial hardship and abandonment. The court did not respond to his request for the appointment of counsel prior to denying the PCRA relief. And the records actually confirmed that Jalil Williams is indeed indigent, which entitles him to have counsel appointed at all stages of initial PCRA petition. So basically, because he's a broke bitch, he should be represented, and the state should offer him a lawyer. So, while the PCRA court's opinion mentions that a hearing was conducted regarding Jalil's PCRA claims, there was no evidence of such hearing taking place on record. And he contests the occurrence of any hearing actually ever happening. And considering the substantial rights at stake, the allegations of abandonment, and the complex issues on appeal, the most appropriate course of action was to vacate the previous decision and remand the case for the PCRA Appellate Council to submit a new amended petition on Jalil's behalf, along with the further proceedings. So, the order was vacated, the case remanded with instructions, and the jurisdiction was relinquished. So now we're going to jump to 2021. This is when Jalil was age 24, and he was an employee at Foster Farms. He took his break at approximately 4:30 a.m. in the morning, which was on a Tuesday, but he actually failed to return to the chicken processing facility. He was actually classified as an escapee, and at the time of his disappearance, he was last observed wearing a light-colored jacket, gloves, and blue jeans. Jalil Williams had been incarcerated at the Richland Parish Detention Center, and he was apprehended later that same day in St. John Baptist Parish. So Jalil escaped from the incarceration, from working on the farm, and the community expressed appreciation for the efforts of the NOPD and the U.S. Marshals, who successfully captured Jalil Williams within the first 72 hours of him being a suspect. So now we get back to Adam's case. The GoFundMe that Adam's mom created, I'm going to read this to you because there was a lot more about Jalil than there was Adam. But Adam, like, there's videos. If you look up Adam Brown on Facebook, and you can see how he's sitting there playing this guitar, and he's just working on his voices. And, like, I remember one particular video I was watching as I was researching, and he was trying to do that scream, like that rock scream type song, and like y'all just gotta listen for yourselves. Now, that is really not my cup of tea. Like, I'm a country folk. Hello. Yeah, but I do listen to all genres of music. Don't get it twisted. But the whole screaming thing, I mean, just not too big of a fan. I guess it just depends. But needless to say, Adam was very, very inclined, and he was just such a kind soul. So this GoFundMe that his mom, Shayna, said, I'm going to read it. My name is Shayna Est, and my son Adam Brown was tragically taken from me and his family and friends on December 16th of 2024 from a fatal shooting. It looks to have been an attempted robbery gone wrong. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children, and this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Y'all, I want you to sit there and imagine how you would feel if you had to bury your child. A mother, a father. Parents should not have to bury their children. The children should have to bury the parents. That's just how it works. That's just how life's supposed to work. But as we all know, life doesn't always go as planned. So Shayna had to do exactly what we all fear and bury her child. And she said, these words are from my best friend in the universe, and they actually came from her friend Christina Ruster. And Christina was given permission to set up that GoFundMe for Adam J. Brown and to say some words about AJ to express how she felt, as well as the rest of his family and friends. And because this incident happened unexpectedly, they were not prepared, and they did not have the funds to pay for this funeral. Now, y'all do realize he was working at Cox Communications. He was on a job installing cable at this location. I feel because he was on the job that the company should have to pay for the funeral. But that's just my personal opinion. I would like to know how y'all feel about the situation. But if something happens to you while you're on the clock, baby, that's all on the company to deal with it, because they're responsible for you, unless, I mean, it's deemed that it's on your own behalf. Like, you caused that whole situation, but that's not the case. Being shot several times on the side of your work truck in an attempted armed robbery, no, baby, no. Cox should be paying for this funeral. So the fact that this woman had to set up a GoFundMe account is just baffling to me. But they go on to say that Adam was killed in New Orleans East while on his job for Cox Cable. And they described how Adam was just one of the best human beings you could ever meet. If you knew him, you instantly fell in love with his personality. His kindness and compassion were infectious, and he just had a smile from him that would actually melt your heart and soul. AJ was only 35 years old and didn't deserve to be taken away so violently or so soon. We are also devastated and just grieving beyond belief, as Adam was such an amazing person. He had no enemies, not a harsh word towards anyone. So it was hard for them to put into words, but Adam was so admired and so loved by so many people. If you aren't able to help Adam's family donate or donate to help his family with this whole funeral expenses and just trying to deal with everyday life with the fact that you lost a child. They asked that you could pray for his family and friends or share the GoFundMe to anyone you can. And the mom actually would like to spread the following hashtag: justice, the number 4, Adam Brown. So anyone with any type of information in regards to this whole incident and ordeal, any more information about Adam, you'd just like to share, like your memories or anything with him. If you have any more information involving this whole ordeal or about Jalil, I mean, you're asked to call NOPD Homicide Hotline at 504-658-5300. You can also contact Crime Stoppers at 504-822-1111. You could remember that, like, whenever you call Crime Stoppers, you do not have to leave your name, and you may be actually eligible for cash reward, just depending on the information given, the time frame, and what's available at that time. So, y'all, AJ, just performing a routine service call, probably just installing cable, or maybe even just fixing a cable line in East New Orleans, and was shot cold on the freaking side of the road on the side of his truck by the senseless Jalil Williams. Like, what the fuck you think you're getting from him? He's a young man, 35 years old. Like, obviously, this man just did not think. I don't even call Jalil, man. He's just like scum. Like, what the fuck? So, I really want to know what you think about this case. Do you feel that, I mean, Jalil just kept getting slaps on the wrist? Like, he had so many of the same charges, like 3 repeat. Like, you think he would have been locked the fuck up. At age 16, he was charged as an adult. 17, 24. Like, he just kept on and on. Same charges and progressively getting worse. Why allow this to keep happening? This would not have happened to AJ if they would have done their due diligence to keep his ass locked the fuck up. Quit releasing his ass. The fact that he fucking escaped from the farm he was working on, y'all. And then he still gets out. Why? What the hell is wrong with their system? Obviously, he freaking grew out of that. At age 16, they felt that juvenile detention was not gonna help him. I don't think nothing's gonna help Jalil because he started this at the age of 10. What the fuck? What the hell? Y'all, this is just crazy. 35 years old is way too young to fucking die. Way too young to die. And he had this whole life. He wanted to be this musician, guitar player, and was working on his singing. Yeah, I really ask y'all to go look up Adam Brown. Now, there's several. I'm going to be linking his Facebook in the show notes as well as his GoFundMe. And you know, y'all just check it out because, I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and try to sing like that because Lord knows, you don't want to hear that. Be breaking windows, okay? We already got a bad luck, juju. 2025 is not my year, but thank y'all. I want to thank y'all so much for listening. And again, y'all want to shout out a case, want me to cover a specific case, y'all have any questions, concern, anything to add or take away, I'm all open for you. You can visit our website at Criminalist behavior Louisiana True Crime Podcast.com. You can look us up on the Patreon at Criminalist Behavior Podcast, any of your podcast apps. I ask that you do subscribe, because what are you doing if you're not subscribed? And like, follow, share. Y'all share. I try to keep updates on y'all. I'll be posting things, different statuses, because like I said, life be lifing. I am going to put up another line of merch, and y'all just stay tuned because it's happening. Also, the Women Podcasting Awards, that's going to be taking place in May, but I mean, we're starting to get the nominations and everything, so yeah, y'all just look out for that. iHeart Music Awards, they just happened. I am going to be coming out with the February newsletter. I know I'm a little late, but hello, lifey lifing, and 2 deaths in the family is just not happening well for me. So y'all keep us in y'all prayers, our family in prayers, because 2025 has been hell, and we're just trying to manage. I want to really thank y'all for listening and giving us the time of day. Thank you for supporting the show. And again, rate and review us. You could just say hi, or you could just literally love the show. Whatever you feel. I mean, whatever. But thank you so much for listening to the show. Be sure to come back next week for a discussion in the Mind of Madness, exploring Mary Jane Jackson's dark legacy. Y'all, that is a doozy. So until then, this is your host, Sarah Sphere, and don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to Criminalist Behavior, a Louisiana True Crime Podcast. Thank y'all for listening again, and y'all have a great night. Bye!